Welcome to Game Music. Well, I'm not sure what day it is actually, but it doesn't matter. We're here with an emergency episode to talk about Jet Set Radio, and I'm very excited to talk about Jet Set Radio because I don't get the chance to talk about Jet Set Radio that often, so it's really cool that I get it. Okay, give me a moment. Be professional. For most hip-hop heads / intense game nerds, there's always been a severe disparity between the types of music we hear in our free time and the type of music we hear in video games. It's a lot better now with indie games and all that, but back when the original Jet Set Radio came out on the Dreamcast back in 2000, the soundtrack by Hideki Naganuma was an incredible revelation for video game music. I had the chance to play Jet Set Radio Future on the original Xbox in about 2002, but either way, in the early 2000s, the game industry was becoming more and more obsessed with high-budget, movie-quality games with big, fat cutscenes and expensive licensed soundtracks and or symphony-orchestrated soundtracks. So when Sega came out with Jet Set Radio and the Hideki Naganuma-produced soundtrack, it was a jarring awakening for me and many others. At this point in time, I did know I liked video game music. I knew I enjoyed music from Kirby and F-Zero, especially Chrono Trigger. But I grew up on hip-hop though, and Sega decided that all that high-quality storage capacity for music was best served with only a few licensed soundtracks. Good ones though, Jurassic 5, Chibo Mato, and such, but mostly the soundtrack was some super funky, heavily sampled hip-hop DJ work by Hideki Naganuma. Looking back on it, Sega seems like they've always been very willing to think outside the box in terms of what kind of soundtrack they'll have for many of their games. Sometimes you end up with the highly controversial soundtrack like Sonic R, but oftentimes you end up with great and memorable and funky soundtracks like Toe Jam and Earl and the game series we're talking about right now, Jet Set Radio. Is there any other game besides Jet Set Radio where the music feels like such an integral part of the game world without actually being part of the gameplay itself? For a good subset of game music fans, it doesn't get any better than Hideki Naganuma. He's continued to be one of my favorite composers of game music ever since I first heard the soundtrack, and it looks like 2 Mello feels the same way. His work in this and many other classic Sega soundtracks, I still listen to so many. Okay, I'm rambling again. But that's not to say, all those classic soundtracks is not to say that Naganuma is not still putting in a lot of work, but I'll get to that in a moment. Now let's talk 2 Mello. One of the most consistently great things about a 2 Mello album is a sense of narrative that runs through many of them. The best albums, for me, are the type you hear one track and then you have to hear like the whole album from the very first note. I can't listen to track 6 of this album because track 5 is like an intro to track 6, but then to get in the mood for track 5, you should probably listen to tracks 3 and 4, so might as well start from the beginning. Anyway, Mello albums do that to me a lot. Quote, 2 Mello, Memories of Tokyoto is a dedication to the music and style of the Jet Set Radio series of games. Produced chiefly, but not entirely, by composer Hideki Naganuma, the soundtrack's vibrant hip-hop inspired attitude has entertained me for over half of my life, and I'm finally giving back. I think that this album is the most true to myself I have been since I started making music, and I hope that you all enjoy listening to it as much as I have enjoyed making it. End quote. So everything Mello says is pretty on point there. This album goes to lots of places. Foremost, of course, it's inspired by Jet Set Radio, but Mello doesn't just do an HD retexture of Naganuma's style. It has been almost 20 years since the original was released on the Dreamcast, and like video games, music moves forward as well, and Mello travels a fair distance between many genres, new and old, for this album, from indie hip-hop and rock to a couple of electronic genres that I don't feel like listing. It really mirrors the very eclectic style of Jet Set Radio itself. Distinctly though, this is definitely an album by 2 Mello Mello does rap on this album, and I'm very glad to see that he's back behind the mic. Last time I think I heard him on the mic was his Game Center CX EP, I think. Even excluding his rhymes, though, from Memories of Tokyoto, you can still hear that this is definitely a 2 Mello album. He has his own voice based on the layers and cuts and whatever fancy production methods he's got up his sleeve. In quick conclusion, I'm glad this album is out. I'm playing my second favorite track off the album based on 2 playthroughs so far. Current favorite, definitely Rock the Beat with that ending. But you can check that one out yourself when you go buy the album off his Bandcamp page. You should also check out both of his early singles, Pump Up the Love and Midnight in Tokyoto, both very hype. I'm going with a slightly deeper cut though. Track 13, Poison Jam. Shoutouts to my favorite Jet Set Radio Future character, Cube, leader of Poison Jam.
My first draft is better than your last draft. Rapping like a vampire, wrapped in a black sash. All blood, everything blood red Adidas. Color coordinated, know the jam when you see us. Flying down the hills on the wheels of steel. Jet set blades on parade in the shade. I'm the type of cat you can't spot in a mirror. Only talk to girls dressed just like Vampira. She got mascara, we got masses. Scare crew, calls that tear your crew. Eyes that glare at you, it's all about blood flow, no love. GG's, wet them streets, hell on your knees. You learn to say please, better come to Benton boys. Come to Kagane show. Bring your radio, we always ready to go. You know you better get all 2 of your boys then. That's right, I don't spit fire, I spit poison. Poison, from the can in my hand. Gonna die for the jam. I spit poison, from the can in my hand. Gonna die for the jam. I spit poison, from the can in my hand. Gonna die for the jam. I spit poison, from the can in my hand. Gonna die for the jam.
We're not done yet, though. As I mentioned earlier, Naganuma has been no slouch himself. He has been steadily releasing music, both new and old, via his SoundCloud page. Most recently, he has released the work he did on a racing game that was available exclusively in Japanese arcades back in 2013. So, unfortunately, I never heard that. I'd never been to an arcade in Japan in 2013, and it's too late to go now. Anyway, luckily, we live in the internet age now, and Naganuma himself has his own SoundCloud page, and he has uploaded some of these tunes from the Japanese arcade game Dead Heat Riders from Bandai Namco. Anyway, I felt like this was a good time to bring that up. So this is Hideki Naganuma's track Buster Beat from Dead Heat Riders. Alright, thanks for checking out that emergency broadcast. Make sure you also play the game Jet Set Radio or Jet Set Radio Future. I don't know which one is easier to get your hands on at this point. I think there's an HD remake, probably. I don't know. You find out. Good luck.